to see both people and businesses leave New York City.
If New York City becomes less welcoming to Wall Street, which is the economic gem of the whole city, they're less likely to stay.
But economists claim fears of millionaires leaving the city are overblown.
This guy, to me, hates the American dream. He hates what made this country great. He hates capitalism.
Mayor Mamdani's extreme policies have caused Wall Street to turn its back on New York for good, putting the city's future in serious danger. What was once the financial heart of the world is rapidly losing its grip as the very people who built it are abandoning the city in droves. With millions in tax dollars and businesses leaving for tax havens like Florida, Mamdani's socialist policies are pushing New York toward economic collapse, and it could just be the beginning of the city's downfall.
Billionaires like Bill Ackman, even former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg spent millions of dollars while Mamdani was campaigning to campaign against him and in hopes of getting him, not to be the next mayor.
Wall Street did not leave overnight. The departure was building for years, but Mamdani's victory ripped the bandage off completely. These financial giants spent millions trying to stop him, funding opposition campaigns, rallying business leaders, warning anyone who would listen that electing a democratic socialist to run the most financially important city on earth would end in disaster. New York's working class voted anyway, and the moment the results came in, the people who had been quietly considering their options stopped considering and started acting. Moving trucks, lease terminations, corporate relocations. The exodus that Wall Street threatened became the exodus Wall Street executed.
Right, because they're all leaving in droves, building lots of buildings in Dallas. They've been building in Tennessee, building in Florida. So the business people have gotten the message and are implementing action plans to counter it.
The numbers behind this departure are not talking points. They are catastrophic realities. More than 125,000 New Yorkers have already relocated to Florida, carrying nearly $14 billion in annual income out of the state with them. Between 2013 and 2022, before Mamdani even entered the picture, New York bled over $500 billion in income to other states as residents fled to friendlier tax environments. That was under politicians Wall Street considered tolerable.
I want affordable housing, affordable health care, affordable groceries, but you want to tax billionaires and rich people, and then you basically in the same breath will say, we don't like you. Yeah. We want you gone. Yeah. We don't think you're the right people. Well, why would you want to give this money to him to run? He's openly saying he hates America in the capitalist way and wants to change the whole thing.
Under Mamdani's openly hostile agenda toward concentrated wealth, financial analysts are projecting that figure accelerates at a pace New York has never experienced before. The city is not losing residents. It is losing the specific residents whose tax contributions keep the entire system alive.
When you look at what Wall Street has been a bit concerned about, it's a few things. Higher taxes is one of them, especially for higher income earners like hedge fund managers, rent freezes that could squeeze Manhattan's lucrative real estate profits, and then pushes for more city-run services like grocery stores over private contracts that benefit a big business.
Mamdani's millionaire tax proposal is the sharpest knife in this particular fight. New York's top earners already face a combined federal, state, and city tax burden that devours more than half their income before they see a single dollar of it. Mamdani wants to push that number higher, targeting everyone earning above $1 million annually with an even steeper rate. The financial industry runs on rational calculation, and the calculation here is brutally simple.
Since everyone's getting the message now, they're going to be looking even further into places like Dallas, to relocate their firms and to set up shop. So I think that's a very big negative in the long term.
Florida collects 0 state income tax. Texas collects 0 state income tax. Both states have spent years aggressively courting exactly the kind of wealthy professionals and financial firms that Mamdani is treating as revenue sources to be squeezed until they break. The moment New York's tax burden crosses the threshold where relocating becomes the smarter financial decision, the money moves. That threshold was crossed before Mamdani arrived. His policies obliterated whatever remained of the argument to stay.
The people who are creating jobs, building businesses, investing in your city, you're going to start penalizing them. You're going to say, you're successful. And so because you're making money, we're going to start taking it away from you.
Corporate tax increases are compounding the individual flight with institutional flight. Firms do not make location decisions based on feelings about a mayor's personality. They run comparative analyses. They put New York's costs against Dallas's costs, against Miami's costs, against cities that have specifically engineered their regulatory and tax environments to attract exactly the businesses New York is driving away.
Regulation, right? If you're telling people we're going to freeze rents, well, number one, you can only freeze rents on 1 million, maybe apartments, not the other, 25% of the housing stock, not the other 75% of the housing stock. We've got 50,000 apartments that sit vacant because the owner can't economically afford to renovate them because they can't earn a return on the incremental capital they put in.
The rent freeze is economic destruction, wrapped in the language of protection. Mamdani's proposal to freeze rents across nearly 1 million stabilized apartments creates a scenario where landlords watch their operating costs rise every single year while their income stays completely locked. Insurance costs are surging. Property taxes keep climbing. Maintenance expenses have inflated dramatically. A rent freeze does not pause any of those realities. It simply removes the landlord's ability to respond to them. The inevitable result is building deterioration, strategic abandonment, and legal maneuvering to remove rent-stabilized tenants through mechanisms the freeze cannot touch.
We need leaders who will fight crime, not undermine the police, who will create jobs, not harm the economy, who will keep taxes down, not make it more expensive for middle-class families to live here.
The working-class families Mamdani is promising to protect end up in decaying buildings or pushed out entirely, while the property market signals to every outside investor that New York's leadership will override economic fundamentals whenever political pressure demands it. Investment capital reads that signal clearly and redirects itself toward markets where the rules do not change based on whoever won the last election.
It survived de Blasio, but it's a shame it's probably going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And that's coming from a business perspective. I am a greater New York area person. This is an amazing city with a great vitality and great youth and energy, but the core issues are not what he's focusing on. We need to increase housing. That's not going to happen easily, right? You need serious.
Real estate collapse does not stay contained to the property market. It infects everything connected to it. And in New York, everything is connected to it. Financial firms lease premium office space that depends on a functioning commercial real estate market. Executives own high-value residential properties whose worth depends on market stability. Investment portfolios, pension funds, and real estate investment trusts all carry New York exposure that suddenly looks far riskier under a mayor willing to freeze an entire sector of the housing market by executive philosophy. Capital is not loyal to geography. It flows towards stability and away from political risk. And Mamdani's New York is radiating political risk in every direction simultaneously.
Free childcare, Mamdani has proposed adding a 2% tax on New Yorkers earning over $1 million annually and raising the corporate tax. That's where the business community disagrees.
Free public transit and subsidized childcare reveal the fatal flaw at the core of Mamdani's entire agenda. The MTA is already buried in debt, requiring billions in emergency funds just to keep its crumbling infrastructure barely operational. Abolishing fare revenue while promising expanded services doesn't solve the problem. It accelerates the collapse.
With him.
Why can't billionaires pay an extra 1% to fund something like childcare?
A couple issues with billionaires. One, they're highly mobile. They can afford to live elsewhere.
Subsidized childcare on the scale Mamdani proposes would come with a price tag that could cripple a budget under even the best circumstances. This is the harsh reality no one in Mamdani's camp wants to openly confront. New York City's millionaires and high earners contribute roughly 40% of all city income tax revenue, which funds everything from schools and hospitals to police and sanitation. If even a fraction of those earners follow the path of the 125,000 who have already fled, the city's budget doesn't just tighten, it implodes. Services get slashed, and the very people Mamdani aims to help will suffer the most.
The issue in New York, rent is too high, right? Utility costs are too high. Why is that, right? The answer is because of policies that he wants to make worse, right?
Bill Ackman, the billionaire hedge fund manager who once treated New York like his personal kingdom, came out swinging against Mamdani during the campaign. Jamie Dimon, the most powerful banker in America, made his concerns crystal clear. These men did not hold back. They warned that Mamdani's policies would devastate New York's economy, drive out investment, and turn the city into a cautionary tale about what happens when you tax the rich until they simply stop showing up.
Do you think that Mamdani's election will lead more financial organizations to leave New York City for Wall Street South in Florida? Tell me, I've read that term just recently, Wall Street South, Florida. This is your state. What is that?
A lot of Wall Street guys have moved to Palm Beach. It's been happening really since COVID. It's accelerated with, increases in taxes. It's not just out of New York. It's New Jersey, Connecticut, it's Chicago, it's California.
So they're fleeing high tax.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs has already started shifting its operations, and Charles Schwab made the bold move to relocate its headquarters to Texas years ago. Meanwhile, Dallas is steadily establishing itself as a powerful financial hub, drawing in major firms that once viewed New York as their sole base of operations. These aren't just minor players making waves. These are industry giants, and they're making their exit loud and clear.
Business community doesn't feel welcome here. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to take their business elsewhere, but it may just mean that they don't invest in the future here.
Now that
Mamdani's victory, built on promises requiring a financial foundation he's destroying, has angered young voters who've misdirected their frustration. The affordability crisis wasn't caused by Wall Street. It's the result of decades of failed policies, incompetence, and a stifling regulatory environment. Mamdani's solution? Drive out the tax base that funds the services working-class New Yorkers rely on. Teachers losing jobs and nurses facing slashed funding won't blame him, but the damage is undeniable. New York isn't on the edge. It's already falling, and Mamdani's pushing it faster.